Hey everyone, and yeah, so finally back at the theater. It's been a little bit, especially with being sick and everything like that. It's nice to finally get out of the house and actually do something. So tonight we're seeing Scream, and um, this week I actually had myself a little marathon of watching 2, 3, and 4. I've seen the first one so much that I didn't feel like I needed to watch it again to have like a refresher or anything like that. But who knows? This is probably going to be based more off the first one than anything else, than the other movies in there. So the only thing that I'm expecting or that I want to happen with this one is that it needs to be more like 4 and less like 3. Um, if it's in between 2 and 4, then it won't be so bad. I just kind of want to have a good time. That's it. Just, the humor to be there, the kills to be there, and it just to be a fun movie. That's all I'm expecting to do for this one. So we'll see what happens after we see it. And then, yeah, we'll probably do a little bit of a review. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the second part of the Scream review. So, I decided to wait until the morning to do the next part, and that's just because, I wanted to think a lot more about it, but I probably didn't need to think a whole lot about when it came to Scream. So, first things first is that there are going to be minor spoilers, maybe some spoilers that go on as I talk about this. I'm not going to talk about the whole thing with what the twist is, the revelation, however you want to say it, what always happens in Scream movies, because Scream movies are not just a slasher, but it's a whodunit of who the killer actually is, or the killers, or whatever you want to call it. So I will say that there are two killers in this movie, and because the first thing I really want to talk about is what they're going for in the movie in general. And again, pardon for my voice, it's just still trying to get over the last bits of COVID, but I'm feeling a lot better to do something like this that I haven't done in a while. So the idea behind everything is that it is a what they call a requel, which I've never heard this term before. I don't know where they got this term. I don't know if they went, it's funny because they reference everything they possibly can, from Reddit to Reddit to forum boards, IMDb's, like anything that they can do to try to make it sound like it's another fucking thing, that a bunch of kids go to. They can buzzwords for places and things and websites, but it is. If you don't know what a requel is, it's when they make a sequel, and they use the idea behind Halloween, right, and in some other movies too, where it's tied directly into the main storyline, but it's its own movie, right? You have a whole new cast of characters, and that's why Halloween is a very good example of these things, because you bring back Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode instead of trying to start the Halloween thing, and instead of doing a Texas Chainsaw Massacre where you're rebooting the whole thing, you're bringing back all the other familiar faces besides the killer that's in there. And that's exactly what this movie is doing. It's doing, again, it's every movie past the first one. I mean, they're all kind of meta in some type of way, shape, or form, but the first one, of course, kind of does it the best, and this one is trying to recapture that magic of the first one, where everybody's like, oh, the last one was terrible, because they make some joke about Stab 8, and when they actually show you a clip of Stab 8, it's definitely a lot different than what you would have expected it to be from any of the other movies that they've done in this franchise. So it's a lot about playing upon your emotional feelings towards the series, right? If you're a fan, and how we're going to do these things. It's almost like the member berries type things, like what we got with the Matrix, but we didn't get it exactly the same as we got it in that version of the movie versus what what they were expecting us to get. We're here, we really are, getting that nostalgia trip and that feel for the first one. And throughout the whole movie, I'm like, okay, yeah, they're hitting those same things and they're doing the things. In fact, they even have the same similar type of structure where friends of everybody are getting killed and then they end up at a party for the final thing, right, where they're even watching the original fucking Stab movie, or Scream or whatever you want to say, and the killings are happening, everything. Like they recreate so many random scenes in this movie from the first one that it's just like, okay, I get it. But to say it's bad is incorrect, because I don't think that this is that bad of a movie. I had a good time watching it. The good things about the movie, the gore and violence are pretty damn good. Very surprising, considering considering the last couple of Scream movies that there were that kind of toned down some things to make it, I don't want to say family friendly, but to focus a little more on the comedy than anything else. Though that was more Scream 3 than Scream 4. Um, and it's just, it's kind of, it, I get what they did and like how they're doing things. So like the thing with like the violence and the tensions to filled scenes are pretty good, but like with a lot of slashers and me, once I see the killer for the first time, there's no more tension for me. Like if everything just kind of happens, it happens, it's great, but it's not really meant for me to be like, it's not that scary of a movie. It's just more like, how do we get to the next kill? Right. And I think that's the same for a lot of people that love slasher movies. Um, and then the other thing is the the twist is interesting. It makes sense for what they're trying to do because everything is so meta with how everything went. And they do a pretty good job of trying to throw you off the scent on one of the people that are going to be involved. But I ferreted out the first one relatively quick. Like it was super easy to figure out who the first person was. And then the second one, again, you have to look to the first film to kind of understand what's going on there. Um, the other thing that when you bring back some of these characters, like you look at Halloween Kills, right, and you have Laurie Strode, and she's basically just in the goddamn hospital, and what the fuck, I don't really care about you being in there anymore. I think they did a really good job with bringing the three characters back and utilizing them. But Dewey definitely gets the highlight of everything, and he gets shown that he's a lot smarter than people actually give him credit for. I think Dewey's always kind of been the bumbling, lovable, like cop guy that got a little more serious as the movies went on. But definitely here, I think he gets the spotlight for everything. And I think that he it's pretty good. And I know that David Arquette was the one like kind of pushing to doing another one or doing a final one or whatever they want to do for them, which is great. It's fine. But it's weird when you get into these like situations where people are like, well, I don't know, I kind of wanted to wait for another script, and I don't want to ruin the legacy of Wes Craven or anything like that. But then why did you do Scream 3? That movie is terrible. It's absolutely the worst in the franchise. But of course, I think he did at the time because well, we got to do a trilogy because that's just the way that these things go. And you did Scream 4 because Wes probably brought you back as well. I get it, but it's like, well, we don't want to like tarnish the other ones, but then you do a really terrible movie, and it's like, well, you came back for this. So I do agree that it's definitely one of the better ones that are out there. Well, it's definitely, I think, tied for the second best of the series, and I'll talk about rankings towards the end. But it's the things with like some of the stuff with the killings, like why they're going after certain people, the motivations in this one of how they're kind of killing everybody that is related directly to the original cast. So like they kill a random guy that is like, well, he screws somebody's girlfriend, I guess, during the summer, and then he's trying to like get back with her. Who, if he's like an adult and she's like a teenager, and everybody's kind of cool with that. Like, I couldn't figure out the age of these people. If they're all supposed to be in their teens again, and that's the way everything's going, but yet they're hanging out in a bar playing pool. Are they teenagers or are they in college? Where the fuck are they at? And then they talk about how, oh yeah, if you want a real drink, and it's like, okay, like, so how old are you, and should you really even be in there? Doesn't make any sense. I don't know. There's a couple of things in this movie that I really felt like didn't make much sense, but that's just the way that it's going. And again, it's the same thing with people and characters. There's one really good, the best scene in the whole movie has to be in the scene where the blonde haired boy, I can't remember his name. I think it's Wes, who is the son of the deputy that brought the lemon squares in 4, and now she's the sheriff. And like, they keep doing these fake outs that every time that he's going to open a closet door, then Ghostface is going to be there, and then there's nothing there. I liked that scene. I thought that was really inventive. It was definitely like perfectly in line with the meta for it, because you were expecting it every single time. And then when something finally happens, it's kind of surprising, and it's not terrible, but I thought that the scene was well shot and well set up for what the movie called for. But just in general, it just falls a little bit short, I think, of where it needed to go. And the ending is a little bit of a mess, but at the same time, I think that the way that it gets set up and the way that it brings you into, and this is it's not a major spoiler, but it's a spoiler enough. It brings you into Stu's house. I thought that was really cool. They had to do something with one of the main 3. I'm not going to say who it is, but I respect that they did it. And I think that it was apropos that it was done. I knew that they were going to do these things. Like I said, there's not, when it comes to the movie itself, there's not a lot that is just like surprising about the movie. I think that's where I fault it some. Everything is really like planned out, and really it's only that scene that's relatively surprising. But like, who the killers are, the motivation, the whole thing behind I think it's Samantha being Billy Loomis's illegitimate, daughter. Actually seeing Skeet Ulrich, in scenes was really fucking cool. I really enjoyed that. And they de-aged him so he looked like himself back in the day. But that whole plot line is so fucking stupid. Like, where that thing ends up is, okay, I get it. There's some implications of what could possibly be later on, maybe for future movies. It would be interesting to go in another direction with that whole thing, but I also don't know if they have the balls to do something like that. There's some things towards the end of it that it's a major spoiler, and I don't really want to get into that, but let's just say I think you flirt with the whole thing of, do you like killing? And I could be totally wrong with that assumption with that as well. And so you have this, this thing that they introduce that really means absolutely nothing to only this character. It's the motivation for the killer doing what the killer is going to do, right? But it really doesn't do anything other than, this is why we need to know about this and how we found out about this. And even how they found out of it, while it's kind of like cute and funny, whereas like, oh, of course, blah, 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 but the daughter doesn't know, the other daughter doesn't know at all. If it's so easy for the killers to find out how this is, nobody else has told her. Like, it seems ridiculous in a couple of things. And then the one thing that I did really also enjoy that they talked about, and this comes down to something I was talking with Pat about. He had sent me this TikTok that's like, who's your favorite killer? And it puts all these killers in there, Jason Voorhees and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy and Freddy Krueger and Chucky, and then puts Ghostface in there, and it has all their like total kills on the bottom of it, right? And I had to think to myself, I'm like, well, technically Ghostface is like, at least up until this movie, he's 7 people, right? It's 2 for each of the ones that were written by the original writer, and then the one that wasn't That's only one. That's the only movie in Scream 3 that there's only one ghost face in the entire movie. Um, and so you have 7 killers. So all those kills should be divided amongst those 7. So Ghostface shouldn't have like 31 kills. He should have more like 5. Like which is true, right? And I like in this that they bring that up, that Ghostface is an idea, not necessarily just your typical slasher, because it's not the same person every time. He doesn't just come back and kill. You don't have 10 different versions of this movie. It's always somebody different that comes in and is Ghostface, right? And I like that they pointed it out in this film. They take jabs at some other things. They talk about like, whatever the current horror, like they may talk about the Babadook, and they talk about Jordan Peele's Up, where the horror movies have a meaning or a theme behind it. But the thing is again, horror movies in general always have some type of fucking message to say, whether or not you want to actually accept it, because you're just enjoying the killing or whatever. There's always something that is back there. They always make some type of social commentary. They always make some type of societal commentary. Horror movies really are like your biggest outlet, I think, to say what you want, but still get a giant audience, because you're going to get a bunch of kills. So it's just the way that these movies work, and the way that people react to them. And so they make that and saying, oh, the people don't want that. They just want, the mindless killings and everything that they had from your childhood. Because, and it's true. Like they talk, these are the points that I really liked about the film, I should say. Like here, it's totally true, because you have, they talk about like the person they use Stab, in the franchise as a thing. And it's true that some of these movies are the first movie that you ever see when you're a kid, right? And you go in there and maybe your parents allow you to watch it. Like Terminator 2 would be one of those movies, right? Where I actually went into the theater with my parents to go see it, because they thought, oh, this is an action movie. It's not really going to scare you, but yet there's scary things in it for a kid, And so you grow up with idolizing that movie because you saw it at that age. So in their case, they're saying, oh, with Stab, people saw Stab when they were like 10, and then all of a sudden here they are, Stab 8. They want to go see it, and it has nothing to do with their franchise, and it's totally different. And that's why it doesn't resonate and it doesn't connect with these people, and they call it the worst movie they've ever seen, rather than giving it a chance, right? Maybe they're trying to do something different with the franchise. And that's kind of why we have these requels, as they call it. I really don't want to call it those. But we have these newer versions that also focus on the old stuff at the same time that they're bringing in the new stuff, right? To appease those old fans that really loved those movies back in the day, and to get a brand new audience at the same time. And that's exactly what this movie is doing, right? It's going to appease the old fans. It's going to bring a brand new audience to the Scream, and they may go back and look at the other ones. And honestly, after watching the old ones, they are a little hokey and a sign of their time. Scream still holds up. That's one of those things. And I think that Scream 4 does a pretty good job, but I think Scream 5 is definitely like around that same type of realm. So I would give this 3 out of 5 stabbings in the neck. I think that there's some really good scenes in there. I think there's some really poor scenes. I think there's some really good acting, and there's some really poor acting. And there's a couple of scenes where it doesn't make any sense. And I think the ending is a bit of a mess, and their reasoning why, like, it makes sense again, but I feel like everything with it is kind of messy at the same time. And so if I'm going to rank the Scream films in the way they are, at least it's Scream 3. I know people like it. I just can't get it. I couldn't get into it. I thought the whole thing was dumb on the movie set. I like that they used the original sets for a lot of the things. I thought that was kind of cool, but it was too jokey, and the killer was just ridiculous. Out of the middle of nowhere, there's a half brother. Fuck you. And then you have Scream 2 for me. While I love Laurie Metcalf, the ending is kind of on that, though it's got a ton of people in it that I forgot that it had in it. And then you have Scream 4 and 5 kind of tied for the same spot, because I think that, I don't know which one out like edges the other one out. I'm just gonna put them in the same category. I think they're just as good as each other. They have some problems, and they're all usually at the end of it. Everything else that was leading up to it was perfectly fine, but then you try to do something wacky with the ending, and that's the way that it goes. And then Scream is the best out of all of them. It's hard not for it not to be the best. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like the content that's here, make sure that you like and subscribe below. I know I'm cutting this probably a little bit earlier than I normally would at this point, but make sure that you check out episodes of the podcast. And there will be a new one released shortly on Wolf Cop. I'm starting to feel a lot better, hence why I'm doing this like review here. And there's still, I'm still trying to fight through some parts of this ending of COVID, and now that my sinuses are suddenly filling up again, I'm wondering if I'm actually getting a cold right after getting this, which would make me fucking happy. But yeah, so thank you guys again. If you liked the movie, let me know what you liked about the movie down in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts on like the whole things with the killers and who they turned out to be, and if you thought that the end was as a mess as some other people have thought. So yeah, I guess that's it for this review, and take care of yourselves and each other.